My name's Lane Breckenridge. I'm with Future Astronaut, and we're here with um, probably SLS's biggest fan, Artemis's biggest fan, uh, David Willis. And joining me is Chad, also working with us from Future Astronaut. Um, so, David, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with being SLS's biggest fan.
All right. So my name is David Willis, and for those of you who don't know, I am like SLS's biggest fan. Um, and I got into SLS about when was that first forward join? About what was it? 2018. I wasn't really a fan of really space before 2016, and I wasn't a fan of SLS until 2018. But when I saw NASA put these the upper portion of the rocket together,
Hmm.
that's when I became a pretty big fan of the rocket myself, and it became real to me, and I've been a fan of it ever since. That's that's at least the story I tell, because that's
Okay.
how it happened.
Um, so, where did you watch the launch?
I watched it
Why don't we
from
start
the
with
Saturn Center,
where?
so about 3 miles away from the launch pad.
Wow.
That's where I tried to watch from, and I couldn't get a ticket for it.
Ah, yeah, those sell out pretty fast.
Yeah, lessons learned.
Yeah, I think I've kind of picked out there's a bed and breakfast straight across the river from Kennedy Space Center, and they have a upper deck, and that's where I watch all these launches. And right below it is El Leon's, whatever it is. I can't pronounce the name of the
El Leon
restaurant.
Cianto. Yeah, I was there
Yes.
last night. That's on Knox. I live right up the road there. I uh,
Ah.
I ditched my car at the barn light, and then
Mhm.
yeah, I was pretty much near you. I didn't even know you were in that area.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that
um,
park that's across the street is where a lot of people set up. A lot of the broadcasters set up streamers, set up their operations and so forth, and so yep, I'm that is my preferred location to watch launches. So tell us, David, um, about your experience. Tell us what it felt like to be there. Tell us uh, tell us what you thought. What was going? What your emotions were? What your thoughts were?
Well, first, it felt hot and humid, as is all Florida weather. But at around the time of the launch, it felt incredible. Like I've seen one. I've seen four Falcon launches before this, Falcon 9s, so I knew what a rocket launch felt like. But it felt like not. It didn't feel anything like the other Falcons at all. It felt like something entirely different. Um, the uh, the SRBs, they make a sound that goes really fast, really rapidly, and every single one of those, you could feel it in your skeleton. It was like the SRBs were physically shaking your bones. It was an experience unlike anything I can really describe, and I think it was one of the loudest things I've ever heard in my life. I can't imagine anything more powerful than that. And the energy in the stands that we were watching was just insane. Everyone was screaming at the top of their lungs, but
oh yeah,
SLS somehow managed to drown every single person out. Everybody was screaming, but SLS at one point got so loud that you could not hear a single person yell. Everybody was screaming, but you couldn't hear them because these engines and these SRBs were just so powerful. You couldn't hear anybody.
incredible. It
It
kind of
is
reminds me of
incredible.
the Starliner launch I saw. I got to go to the gantry. That's the closest you can ever get to Pad 41. Similar story. That thing would crackle in your ears, and it was just mind blowing. And like you said about the bones, yeah, my rib cage rattled.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing about the Falcons. They the SLS, you feel it, right? You
Oh yeah.
feel it. Whereas the Falcons, you see it and you hear it, and there is a definite sensation. And you always jump, especially if they're landing back at LZ1. You always jump when that sonic boom happens. But it was amazing. Um, the red team story was amazing to me. I don't know if you saw their interview on NASA, but that was just that interview was amazing. And for the one guy said I can't remember how many years he's been on red team and has never gone to the pad.
Oh
With
wow.
never gone. And he dated into the shuttle era, and he never had to go to the pad to deal with it. He'd always trained for it, and they were pumped going in, because they kind of saved the day in a lot of ways. Um, so I've asked one of the questions. Another question that's popped up from Bill Peterson. I don't know if you know Bill. He goes, the SRBs, like the shuttle, have hold down bolts. Is that correct? So he's asking
That
you, is it?
That is not correct, actually. The shuttle had hold down bolts because, in addition to a very tall, very large rocket, there was also a very long, very heavy space plane attached to one of the sides.
Hmm.
And so, naturally, the center of mass was not directly over the boosters. So, if you just left it there, it could fall over. SLS does not have a space shuttle. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm going to backtrack. I'm getting this wrong. I don't want to be too wrong. The reason is when the shuttle is on the side of the vehicle, right?
Hmm.
And it lights its engines. The engines are over here, but the stack is over here. So it pushes the stack over like that. That's the twang. It pushes it over. And if the bolts aren't holding it down, who knows what could happen? But with the SLS, they have the pins that if you actually look right here, the pins go into these little things right there.
Hmm.
And typically in the shuttle there would be a hold down bolt in this little area right here that holds it into place, but they can just sit them on the pins without the hold down bolts because there is no twang. The rocket is fully in line, so all the thrust goes like that and not like that. And so the rocket doesn't need the pins or the hold down bolts because it can just sit there without any issue.
Okay.
And here, this whole time, I thought they were hold down bolts, like in the movie Space Camp.
Did, I don't remember SLS. It was SLS in Space Camp. It wasn't. Was that the space shuttle?
No, that was a shuttle.
So basically, no pyrotechnics
No,
with.
there are still pyrotechnics all over the booster, just not for the hold down bolts.
Okay.
If you look here, you'll see some motors right here. These are pyrotechnic separation motors, and there are some up here as well, right here. These motors and these motors fire at separation of the booster and push the booster away from the rocket. So there are still pyrotechnics. There's just none in the hold down bolts anymore, or
Okay.
there are no hold down bolts anymore.
Okay, that sounds great. Then there's whoever Lextacy 2008 says any any tips you could give us on how to grow a space flight brand into something that NASA's looks for.
Before you answer that, that's actually me that asked
Oh,
that.
okay. Go
All
ahead.
right, you ready?
Go ahead.
Yep.
All right. So my tip would be, because I've done two YouTube channels that have been moderately successful, one about space, one not. And I found that the common denominator for both channels is that the editing needs to be good and the story you're telling with the YouTube channel also needs to be good. If you can get those two right, the editing and the story, you'll grow a channel amazingly, because the editing gives you the visuals to show everybody, and the story keeps them in. Without those two, I don't think you can really you won't retain a base of people watching you, in my opinion, with my experience. So make sure your editing is solid, and make sure you're telling a good story, and people will stay. That's at least my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
Where does photos play into that?
Photos.
Photography.
I'm not. I don't really take photos that much. So my kind of thing is YouTube and Twitter. So I'm not really I don't really know enough about photography to tell you the answer to that. I would be not telling a truthful statement if I tried.
Okay.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about Artemis I, right? The mission that we're on, and then we can talk about where things are going in the future. Does that sound good?
All right. So with Artemis 1, it was a beautifully successful mission. Now that Orion has separated from the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, its next task is to just coast for I think it's about 4 days until it gets to the moon, at which point it'll point its solar panels towards the capsule, kind of at an angle, so like upwards like that. The engine's back there, and the engine will fire, and it will enter into a distant is it the distant retrograde orbit? I think it's the distant retrograde orbit. It could be a little bit something different, but it'll enter into a distant retrograde lunar orbit, and it will do a couple swings around the moon before it fires that engine back up and comes back. I believe Orion will get to the moon on November 21st, and it should come home on December 9th. And then after that, I think the next thing that's going to happen is with SLS, after they do all their stuff with Orion to get it safe and make sure the vehicle's in healthy condition, they're going to start working on Artemis II. Now, they've been working on Artemis II for a very long time. In fact, the core stage for Artemis II is basically ready to be finished. The entire, the hydrogen tank, the intertank, and LOX tank and forward skirt, these are all done. The engine section, I think, is getting close to completion. They need to mate this to this, and then they install the engines, and that's the core stage complete. This piece up here, the launch vehicle stage adapter, that is also complete. The interim cryogenic propulsion stage is also complete. The solid rocket boosters are all complete. They just need to be stacked, of course, in the VAB. And then Orion has a lot of work to do. So the rocket is really close to being ready. The spacecraft still has a ways to go, and that's going to be most of the critical path items is going to be Orion for the launching on the next attempt for Artemis II. But that's the immediate future. Of course, SLS-3, there's also parts in the work for that. They've built the hydrogen tank. They've built the forward skirt and engine. They built the forward skirt, and they've built the engine section, and they've got at least one barrel for the LOX tank for Artemis 3. And I think they've got the boosters for Artemis 3 too. I'm not entirely sure on that, so I'm not going to say for certain. And they've got half of it's either half or they've got the whole thing built for the launch vehicle stage adapter. And I've seen the hydrogen tank I don't know if it's called an interstage, but the piece that connects the LOX tank to the hydrogen tank for the Delta cryogenic propulsion stage, they've got a lot of that worked on for Artemis 3 as well. And again, Orion is lagging behind the rocket for that mission as well. But they're making heavy progress towards launching. And if I can keep going, there's more.
Keep going.
Artemis 4, the first launch of the Space Launch System Block 1B rocket, has hardware as well. We're going to pretend this is a Block 1B. On Block 1B, this little tiny space right here from here to here gets really big, way bigger than this. It's called the Universal Stage Adapter, and they've already built a Universal Stage Adapter. It won't fly, but it's going to be for structural testing. And it's built identically to a real flight article. It's just designed for structural testing instead of flight, so there's no sensors and stuff. But they've got the payload bay for the SLS Block 1B. They've also got the engine section for the Block 1B. Of course, they've got the engines ready for the Block 1B, and they've got the casings for the Block 1B as well. I don't know. I don't think they're fueled yet, so I can't comment on that. But they've got a lot of stuff for Block 1B too. It's coming together. And there was also an interstage testing article that's, I think, somewhere in Stennis right now, or somewhere in the south. I'm not entirely sure where it is. I can't remember. But they've got a testing device for the interstage, which is going to be the equivalent of the launch vehicle stage adapter, but conical instead of cylindrical. No, they're cylindrical instead of conical. And that's going to be used for testing loads and stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think, is there anything for Artemis 5 yet? Can't think of anything big for Artemis 5 yet, so I'm going to stop there.
Okay.
One thing interesting I found on Twitter, I forgot who posted all the time. They actually show a chart, a linear chart showing Artemis 1, 2, 3, 4, and its progress in a graphical form, like 3D modeling. So Artemis 2,
I know who you're talking about.
A blue hexagon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody's watching, I highly recommend you go follow that guy. That is excellent follow. Definitely worth your time.
Okay.
Oh, take a little break here. What I want to start doing is a tradition. It's the drink of the night, where we display what we're drinking. So I'll start. I have Seagram's Wild Berries. Lane, what is your drink of the night?
Mine is simpler. Mine is simply Diet Dr. Pepper. You got Diet Mountain Dew. Mine's Diet Dr. Pepper. So that's what my drink of the night is. What are you drinking?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to say something even simpler. I've just got a plastic water bottle in my backpack behind me.
Water's perfect.
So, well, you know what? It's liquid hydrogen, oxygen. It's rocket fuel. So that's what SLS drinks, right?
Nothing wrong with that.
If it's good enough for SLS, it's good enough for me.
Yeah, you just got to make sure that liquid hydrogen doesn't leak, though.
Yeah. It's also got to make sure that oxygen and hydrogen are combined, or else I might not make it till tomorrow.
All right. I actually want to go down the list here for our next question. Let's see here. Bill Peterson has asked. I don't know if he's asked this already, but wait, my bad. I do got another question though. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh my gosh. Okay, you've asked a question that has a very long answer, so I hope you're ready for this. So there is a group of dinosaurs that is not really well known, called the Abelisaurids. They're basically, if you thought Tyrannosaurus Rex had short arms, these guys have even shorter arms. But there was one that has just been discovered in Kenya that is absolutely massive. It's like the size of, it's almost as big as a T-Rex, but they haven't named it yet. And I really like this one. If it had a name, I would tell you what its name was, but they haven't named it yet. And this is my favorite dinosaur. They call it, like, I think the nickname they've got for it is, I think it's Tyrannovenator. That's the nickname, if I'm correct. I could be wrong. I don't remember too terribly well what the nickname is, but it doesn't have a name right now. But it's the coolest dinosaur I've seen in a while, and that's my favorite one. That's what I'm going with.
Okay. What do you think of the Brontocleptosaur?
The Brontocleptosaur. I have not heard of a Brontocleptosaur. I could be out of the loop, but I don't think I've heard of that one.
Well, that's because I made it up.
Oh, excellent. That's how paleontologists make dinosaur names. They just make them up. They're like, all right,
yeah.
So.
All right.
You find a dinosaur, you could name it Brontocleptosaurus.
I haven't even envisioned what one would even look like yet. It's just like a long-necked thing that flies.
I mean, it could. It could.
Well, okay. Bill again asks, tell us about the future blocks of SLS.
The future blocks of SLS?
Like Block 2.
Oh, Block 2. All right. First, I'm going to go back to Block 1B, because this Block 1 It's the world's most powerful rocket and the largest rocket NASA has built since the Saturn V. This is the smallest configuration of the SLS rocket. For Block 1B, they're going to make a few immediate changes. This launch vehicle stage adapter is going to go from conical to cylindrical, and it's going to be 27.5 feet wide all the way through. The ICPS is going to turn into the exploration upper stage, and it's going to be 27.5 feet wide all the way through. And the Orion stage adapter, as discussed before, is going to turn into the universal stage adapter, a massive payload fairing connecting the EUS to the Orion stack. The Orion stack will remain unchanged. Now, that's for the first flight of Block 1B. Second flight of Block 1B, we go onto the other side of SLS, and these RS-25D engines get swapped out for the new expendable and cheaper variants, the RS-25E engines, designed specifically for SLS. Now, after Block 1B flies about 5 or 6 flights, I can't remember the specifics. After that, the boosters get replaced by something called BOL. BOL stands for Booster Obsolescence and Life Extension. And basically, they're taking the steel casings of the boosters and they're making them carbon composite and they're changing the fuels too. This will allow them to get much more performance out of the boosters and even a little bit more power. Additionally, they're going to increase the thrust of the engines down here. So we'll see an increase from 8.8 in the Block 1 to 8.9 in the Block 1B to 9.2 million pounds of thrust in the Block 2 SLS rocket. So that's the Block 2. Really, it changes just the boosters. So everything Block 1B has is going to be the same with Block 2 except for the boosters. And then after that, Block 1B and Block 1 are done for. You'll never see another one of those again. It will just be Block 2s from Artemis 10 onwards.
Do you think
Good.
they were going to do a JX2 engine? Would you have preferred that engine to be an upper stage engine?
I love the J2X, but I can't say it would have been a good idea because J2X. Well, I messed my hair up. J2X is a very powerful engine, but for what SLS is doing, translunar injection, the RL10 is much more efficient for that purpose. If you put a J2X on there, you'd get a lot higher payload to low Earth orbit, but SLS doesn't take payloads to low Earth orbit. It takes them to the moon. So the the RL10 is a much better choice for that engine. 4 RL10s are better than one J2X for a translunar injection.
Okay, that's good to know. All right,
Bill's
Lane, you want to take the next question?
Yeah, Bill's asking lots of questions. Tell us about the second mobile launch platform.
So I believe work has started on the second mobile launch platform. I don't really know anything about how that's proceeding, though. So I wish I could answer that, but the only thing I can say is that the OIG doesn't seem to think it will be ready anytime soon.
Okay.
I don't know whether to agree or disagree at this point.
Okay. One thing I noticed, the MLP is still out on the pad. My prediction is it's probably going to be there for another week because they do need to run out there and take some data from the mobile platform as well to get, just in case there's any issues or kinks they need to work out, which is really interesting because, that second mobile platform that you were just mentioning earlier, that could introduce a delay or whatnot to that.
Yep. I do think you're correct. I think they will go out, spend about a week looking things over before they bring the tower back to the VAB for repairs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I interviewed one of the people who work for NASA on the GSE equipment, and that's just an awesome. He was just so pumped, and he's still pumped about what's gone on with SLS and with Artemis I. So to me, this is a great thing for a lot of folks that have poured their heart and soul into this rocket. There's been a lot of people spending a lot of time over several years making this rocket happen, and it's just a significant achievement that's been accomplished. And the neat thing um, was that they all 7 of the astronauts are out there that are nearly going to likely be the ones to fly on Artemis II. Victor and a number of those folks are out there. Did you get a chance to see any of the astronauts while you're there?
I think I got a glimpse of one as I was going to the launch site where I was going to watch, but I didn't. It was a glimpse at best, if
Just
I even saw
glimpse.
one. I saw someone wearing an all blue jumpsuit kind of thing, and I assumed, hey, that might be an astronaut, but not really, not really. No.
Sometimes you get those confused with the people who go into the gift shop and buy the astronaut suits.
That might be what
Sometimes
that
can't
was.
tell.
That might have
That's
been.
true.
Might have been.
That's true. I'm gonna have to. I've been typically I change my icon to the latest space thing on Twitter, so I need to switch over to Artemis. I had Starliner was the one that I had on Twitter, and that's the one I've been kind of rooting for because it's they're struggling a little bit, and the team is struggling a little bit with that. Timelines. Do you think NASA's going to hold to all these timelines for Artemis 2? Artemis 3 is a little bit harder because there's
The
two
lunar lander.
organizations that have to come together.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Artemis 2. Do you think that timeline's going to hold 2024?
I would say that it sounds pretty solid that it's going to go in 2024 because, like I said before, the SLS rocket for that mission is basically already done. It's just got to mate a few things and then it's ready to go. The issue that is arising is Orion is kind of lagging behind the rocket, not to the same extent as the core stage versus the rest of everything else for Artemis 1. The core stage was 3 years behind the rest of the rocket for Artemis 1, whereas Orion's just a little bit lagging behind in Artemis 2. The main showstopper is the fact that there is a part that they need for the Artemis 2 Orion that is currently on its way to the moon. And as you know, you can't exactly put that into the Artemis 2 Orion until the Artemis 1 Orion comes back.
Right.
So they've got to wait for Orion to get back, and then it takes about 18 months for them to process and get that avionics box, or it's an avionics box or some sort of avionics something. They have to take it out of Orion and then put it into Orion 2, and that whole process takes about 18 months. And since Orion's going to be around the moon for about a month, we can expect earliest we'll see an Artemis 2 mission is in 19 months from now, which is in 2024. But the issue that I haven't seen any specific issues to the vehicle, but there was an OIG report that they said they think it's going to take 27 months. I don't know how they came to that number. I would like to hope that they're incorrect, but OIG is kind of they know what they're doing sometimes. So I guess it remains to be seen. I'm going to be optimistic and say 19 months personally, but OIG says 27, so you got to take that too. You got to take that into consideration too. Either way, 27 months, that's about 2 years, 3 months from now. So that'll be early 2025. So anywhere from late 2024 to early 2025, you'll see SLS Artemis 2 launch.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, Bill Peterson also said that he'd seen damage on the mobile launch platform. So that there's a tweet that came out that said that occurred, which you would think the largest rocket ever.
Yeah.
The first time it's been used, there would be a certain amount of
damage to the pad.
GSE damage.
Yeah.
Let's see. Now Bill wants to know where you got your SLS model from.
The first ever rocket launch I went to see was Demo Mission 2 with I'm going to embarrass myself because I can't remember off the top of my head what the astronaut was. It Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, right?
It was
Bob Behnken, Doug Hurley launching to space on a Falcon 9 rocket, and in the Kennedy Space Center gift shop, I bought this guy for a probably too expensive amount of money. But hey, that's in theme with SLS, right? So it's all part of the experience.
Yeah,
But I got this guy 2 years ago at the Kennedy Space Center, and it's funny because now the stand that it sits on, there goes the space shuttle. Stand it sits on is now correct. It is the world's most powerful rocket.
there we go.
Oh yeah,
The
So
world's most powerful
and brightest.
world's brightest rocket too.
was it brightest as well?
I gotta
yeah,
watch
I
Scott
not heard
Manley's
that.
video on that
I
tonight.
think Scott Manley did a video on it, and I watched it. He said that it was because of the particulates that were coming out of the SRBs, made it the brightest rocket ever. I think he said he said N1 might have been brighter, but he didn't say for sure, so I don't think it would have been because it was all liquid fueled as opposed to solid fuel, and so that's what I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna say it's the brightest as well.
Yeah. I think Tim Dodd was telling people that N1 was still more powerful, but what they say is this is the most powerful to orbit, right? This is the most
This is
powerful
the
one to
most
actually make it.
powerful. This is, if you want to be correct, this is the most powerful operational rocket.
Right.
Yep.
And I guess you could even say it's the most powerful rocket because there are no more N1s. There are Saturn V's. There's 3 Saturn V's all across the country. So Saturn V could have been the most powerful, but there are no more N1s anywhere. They destroyed every one of them. So there's no more N1s, which would mean that in the world, this is the most powerful rocket. So world's most powerful rocket. At least that's the logic I like to use.
I think it'd be a little hard for those Saturn V's to come back to life, but
yeah,
I suppose you can take
them
out
of. They're still there. Hardware exists that could have flown. I know the Apollo 19 stage was at it's near Stennis, right? The Apollo 19 Saturn V Center, or the Apollo 19 Saturn V first stage is near Stennis.
A space camp, right? You have
right something
near
there.
I think that's in Alabama.
Well, there are 2 in Alabama. I think one of them, the one on its side, is a real but test article, and the one standing up is just a mock-up.
Okay, yeah, that's what I believe as well. And then you have the one at Johnson Space Center and the one at Kennedy Space Center.
Yes, and then in addition to all those 3, there is a first stage for Apollo 19 that's just kind of somewhere out there. I'm not exactly sure where. I know it was at Michoud, but they took it out. They removed it right before the tornado came and hit. And that tornado, unfortunately, it destroyed the Space Shuttle ground vibration test article, which was kind of sad. But luckily, they got the Saturn V first stage out of there. So that's somewhere.
Hey, David, I got a question for you. What do you plan to do for your 10,000th followers?
Oh my gosh, I haven't even thought about that.
You're getting pretty close. You're like, I think
I'm getting
500-600 away.
Incredibly close, honestly. I really didn't think about that, to be honest with you, because I kind of really didn't hit me until recently that okay, I'm kind of a big account now. I've been operating as if I was a small account. That's why I get into so many arguments on Twitter. But I'm getting to be a big account now, which is kind of weird to think about. So I'll have something special for 10,000. I'll have something special. I can't say what it is now because I don't even know, but it will be special. It will be special.
Looking forward to it.
All right.
Let's see. I think there's another question. I gotta find it here.
Oh, the reload asks, when do you think Artemis II will happen? But we kind of already touched up on that. An averaged 19 to 27 months. I'm predicting 25 months.
When it's ready.
Yeah, that works too.
Let's see. Yeah, similar to earlier questions. This question comes from United Launch Alligator on Twitter. Assuming SLS proves to be an extremely reliable and useful vehicle for the future, could there be any more upgrades than the currently planned upgrades? And so they have etceteras, LRBs, extra RS-25s, maybe a future smaller third stage like a Delta P. So what's your thoughts if this goes beyond wildly successful from a booster perspective.
All right, so I've got I don't think they're going to do anything. I think SLS Block 2 and all the changes that brings is going to be it. But I have heard that there is space right here for a 5th RS-25. I've heard that there is space for it. I don't think they're going to do it because that's a 5th RS-25. Those are expensive. But I've heard there's space for it if they for some reason wanted to. I don't remember where I've heard that. I think it was someone who would have known, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't think they'll do it because that's 4 engines works fine. But that's if they were going to do anything else to SLS, a 5th RS-25 is the most likely thing I see happening, and I don't think that's very likely at all. So I think Block 2 is going to be it.
Did anybody when I went home after the launch, it was like 20 minutes later, you could still see the SRB trails in the sky. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty cool seeing the smokestack cover the moon, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
the moon was making it glow eerie.
there are some phenomenal pictures out there. John Kraus gets one with SLS with the moon in the background, and it's not a composite photo. It is literally a planned photo that he had set up, and he's got a knack for photography. Now, Bill asked again, could you see the SRB separate? Yeah, I could see the SRB separate.
Barely with the naked eye for me, because I was 13 miles from the pads.
I couldn't. I saw the change of color from the light, but I don't remember. I probably did see it, but I don't remember experiencing that. The being able to see them pop off. I definitely remember seeing it go from yellow to white, though. But I think I was turned over to, there was a screen off to the side that was showing like the boosters at that point. So I think I was looking over there when they were separating, and so I wasn't looking at the rocket itself because it was so far away. So I think I missed that. But I mean, I saw it on the screen, so it was cool.
There you go. Where did you watch it from, Chad? Where did you see?
I watched it where Knox and US 1 is. So where that new weed shop is.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And you know where I watched it from, so
yeah, pretty much the same. That park.
Yeah.
There's so many parks along US 1. But you know, I'm fearing that it's going to get overdeveloped and there'll be less places to watch launches from, and then
so what's your next launch that you're going to go watch? What's coming up that is exciting? That's within 2 years, right? You're not going to wait till Artemis II. You're going to go see another launch. What do you think you're going to go?
I had to go twice for SLS, so I think I'm about rocketed out for a while. The one that I'm considering going to see next, if I go see one at all before Artemis II, because I'm not sure I will, is Crew Starliner. Because then I will have seen Crew Dragon, Crew Falcon 9, Crew SLS, or a crew module, not specifically because there's of course no astronauts up here, but I will have seen the crewed version of a Falcon 9, the crewed version of an SLS, and the crewed version of a Starliner, and of an Atlas. I mean,
yeah.
So I'll have the trifecta if I go see Artemis. If I go see OFT or CFT1 or whatever it's called now.
No, Vulcan.
Vulcan. Oh man. Oh, why did you have to remind me of that? Oh, now I have a decision to make. Okay, Vulcan.
That's coming. What, end of January, February? That's what they're saying.
I think
I
beginning of
might miss the
January,
first
but
Vulcan launch. I might miss the first Vulcan launch. Because Dream Chaser might be the more interesting launch. Or no. Now hold on. Now I'm remembering things. Okay. Sorry if a specific person heard me say that, because I remember now. The first Vulcan launch has something special on it, and I think I should go see that first one. Okay. I don't know. This thing literally launched today. I just got back home from Florida. I should not be deciding what I'm going to go see next the day of this launch. Okay.
But it's good to know we are living in what I consider an exciting time, right?
yeah,
We've gone from Falcon 9s and Falcon 9's landing to Falcon Heavies to um, SLS. We're about to have Vulcan early next year. We're going to
And
see
Starship
Atlas 5. What?
and Starship too, right?
Well,
Uh,
I'm a believer the Starship's going to launch. The big difference is the first launch, the OFT of Starship.
it's
Um,
that'll be in
it's not an
Texas though.
operational mission, right?
it's it's like I was excited when they did Grasshopper in Texas, right? So that was
Right.
a excitement for me. So it's going to be exciting, but it's not really accomplishing something other than being a pathfinder. And so I'm
Right.
excited for it, Starship. But that's the first Starship that actually does something is not the one that's going to launch in December, January.
Right.
Vulcan is coming. Atlas 5 with Starliner on top. I will be there for that, definitely. I will definitely be there for that. I don't miss many of the crewed launches. I typically go to every launch that has crew on it, and make an opportunity. And then right behind that, about a year, and a lot of the NASA people that I know have gone to work now for Blue Origin, and they can't tell me anything directly, but they say that uh, New Glenn is starting to come together, and
I
They
so
had a
believe it.
picture. They had a picture of the fairing out a couple days ago, right?
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
they did. So that's coming a year, let's say a year and a few months from now, and we'll
Yeah,
see
a year and a little bit. Yeah.
year in a little bit.
yeah.
If you believe the space pundit, well, I call them space pundits, the guys that do this for full time for a living, they say 2024 for New Glenn. Um,
Yeah.
but
That makes sense.
yeah. Um, let's see. Yeah, Bill's very active on asking questions. He's putting in a plug for Ben Cooper for doing
Yeah.
light launch
Ben
pictures.
Cooper had a
And
pretty good picture of the RS-25s and SRBs. Those SRBs look angry. It's incredible. They look like mean and stuff. Where the
They look.
RS-25s are like invisible. The SRBs are just power. It's
Yeah.
incredible stuff.
I went to a shuttle launch, one of the last ones, and that was what my feeling was about the SRBs, even on the shuttle. They were angry, and they were going to take the shuttle to orbit, whether it wanted to go or not.
Right.
So yeah, that's
I remember there was a documentary about the shuttle back a while ago. I can't remember what it was, but one of the quotes that one of the astronauts was said, he said, "As soon as the SRBs lit, you were going somewhere fast."
hmm.
Can't if I can remember which one that was. I'll make
was
sure to
that
say
what
it.
the IMAX one?
It might have been. It might have been,
It
but it
may
was
have. I think so. I've seen that. Yeah, yeah.
That's
At
the
the
one
moment,
that
it was a quote that I remembered as the SLS was going up, and I was like, "Yeah, that's going somewhere."
the moment they lit, you knew you were going someplace.
You knew you were
It,
yeah.
going someplace, and you were going there fast.
If
yeah,
anybody hasn't seen that movie, I highly recommend it.
yeah.
They show the shuttle sitting on the pad with this cool camera angle, and it actually shows what twang is, and
Oh
you can hear
wow!
this eerie, creaky sound when it starts to bend over.
Oh,
It is the coolest thing you're ever going to see and hear.
Hmm.
that's the one thing I what's the right word? That's the one thing about SLS that I'm a little bit unsatisfied with is that you don't get to see twang.
Ah,
With the shuttle, you get to see that incredible. It's like you get to see that kind of motion with it, but with the SLS, it just goes straight
Yep.
up.
Someone said that 10 seconds to clear the tower was all.
Wow.
Just leaped off the pad.
I remember I was watching the old Saturn V launches, and they crawl off the pad. And SLS, it didn't even look real. It was just like woo, up into the air. It was wild.
Did you have pad viewing where you were?
Well, there was a bit of a tree line, so let's make a little example right here. Let's say that this is the launch pad. There were about trees covering about that kind of
Okay.
visual, so you could see bits and pieces of the MLP, but you couldn't really, you could see the whole rocket, and that's all that mattered.
Yeah, the shuttle launch I went to, and I went to one of the viewing areas. We couldn't even, and it was very close, but where I was, I couldn't see the shuttle at all. I only saw it when it cleared the trees. And it's still amazing. I still love you see it, the whole concept of seeing it, and then you can nearly count, right? Okay, we're 3 miles away in 18 seconds. I'm gonna hear it, and so that's neat. Bill was saying it was under 5 seconds. Yeah.
Wild, absolutely rocketed off the pad.
Yeah. So let's see what else. So we've talked about this. We've talked about that. When do you think the Artemis II astronauts are going to get picked?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't imagine it would be too much longer after SLS. You know what? I'm going to make a prediction. I think it's going to happen when Orion comes home. That's my prediction. Because, obviously you're not going to want to say, hey, here are brand new astronauts we're going to put on Orion. And Orion comes in and burns up. And you're like, oh, you guys are going to get to go on the next one. So I can't imagine they'll do it before Orion comes home safely.
Yeah, I think within a month or two.
Right. It's
afterwards. Right. And Bill Nelson's going to want to get them in front of the cameras and everything else, and introduce them.
If they wanted to go flashy, they could have the astronauts on the recovery boat and in front of Orion and announce the astronauts that will be riding on the next one. That would be a show right there.
Better than that, they could invite you out there, and you could do a YouTube video of that announcement on the recovery boat.
Let's go on a boat. Let's go recover Orion.
Yeah, that's the one place that I've always wanted to be after seeing all these Crew Dragons come back, is I'd like to be on the recovery boat, and that's where I'd like to be.
Yeah, let me tell you, one of my biggest regrets is that when I was very little, I went onto I think it was the Yorktown, right? And there was an Apollo capsule on there, but I wasn't interested in space, and so I kind of just walked past it. And now that I'm like into space, I'm like, oh my gosh! I walked next to an Apollo capsule and didn't take a picture or anything. And I was on the recovery boat, so that was
it. A teacher friend of mine that teaches high school science, right? So he was so excited about this Artemis launch that he replayed it in each of his science classes, and he goes, kind of the bad part of it was about 10% of the class was all that was excited about it and pumped, and he goes, it's kind of sad that 90% weren't.
Yeah.
And
did you like the news article clip? Somebody clipped some news articles for today. It's just SLS wasn't even on the front page, or it was moved off to the side. That was really disappointing.
Yeah,
right.
But there weren't people on it, so I can imagine maybe when people go on it, first people back to the moon since Apollo, that's got to get front page news. I can imagine a test flight of an uncrewed vehicle that could have possibly, gone awry might not make it to front page on the first.
And one that's rolled out to the pad and it's had two solid
rolled back in, rolled back out.
Yeah, it's had two solid attempts, and they, a lot of news organizations sent crews for the first attempt, and I'm sure that given the first two attempts and the hurricane,
They weren't too confident in this one going.
I was trying to think who I had seen. Um, I think it was someone who's a former NASA person said that he thought it only had like 50% odds of being successful after the hurricane. He was pretty
Oh
down
wow!
on, yeah. Now, as we know, that's not true,
And
but
that's the crazy part, because nothing really went wrong. It all went
nothing.
Nope.
perfectly.
You know, everyone's like all worried about the what was the half
It was
a
like a little piece of
millimeter,
paper that was on the capsule.
Yeah,
yeah,
there was okay.
the
So
film.
they've right about a little bit above this black line, they've got a piece of like industrial grade caulk, I think is what Scott Manley called it, and it had
Yeah.
about that much of it had fallen off, and people were worried a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But the little piece of caulk, the leak, and an Ethernet switch were really the
Yeah.
only issues. And
And,
the funny thing is, the only thing that actually delayed the launch was the Ethernet switch, which delayed it about like 30-40 minutes.
well,
And
The
it's
best
such a stark
IT save.
contrast. Such a stark contrast to the first two launches where like everything was going wrong. Oh, there's a leak. Oh, there's weather constraints. Oh, this is not going well at all. There's an engine issue. There's a sensor issue. None of that happened this time.
I thought it was the tightening down of the nuts that caused the delay last night. Was it not?
No,
The red
the
team going?
nuts, the tightening of the nuts was completely within the within the time constraints. The delay was specifically because of the Ethernet switch. They
Oh
went out
wow.
there and they had to fix it, and the initial fix was projected to be 70 minutes long, which would have been finished 20 minutes before the launch window opened. But it took them longer to fix than they thought, and then they had to go and test it, which added some additional time, and then you have to get back into the count. And so it pushed the launch back about 40 minutes. The Ethernet switch on a radar machine somewhere in the east. And
Wow.
so
Yeah. So
that IT guy's the hero tonight. That's the moral of the story.
Yep, and the red team.
Oh yeah, red
and
team.
the red.
Yes, red team too. Red
Yeah,
team
the
and
red
the
team.
IT team.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview on one of the national networks, one of their news programs, and they had someone came on and explained that they'd seen vape. The reason they felt the red team needed to go in is they'd seen vapors coming from this area, um, indicating that cryogenic fluids were leaking, and some vapors were getting out. And so that's what made NASA confident that the red team could go in and tighten those nuts down and fix it. Was they actually had cameras on the on whatever the thing was that needed to be tightened and could see the leaking occurring. Let's see.
JM
Yeah, the
Studios
Best Buy
said,
guy. Yeah,
yeah,
someone said the Best Buy guy and the
They got the Geek
red
Squad
team
out there.
saved the mission. Um, yeah,
Many a
yeah.
joke were made at the expense of the IT department that night. I'll tell you what.
The other thing that was interesting was they interviewed someone that explained the options that they looked at, and they looked at the options of not tightening it down, and instead of using the replenishment valve, they're going to use the main valve. Was one option that they looked at, and then decided that it was better to send the red team in. So let's see. Bill Peterson says he visited Kennedy Space Center in 1972 after high school. They'd let you drive anywhere on Kennedy Space Center with a car. Got some of the original LC-39 crawlerway River Rock. He took River Rock as souvenirs, and NASA wants them back. So Bill, we'll let NASA know who you are.
I heard that taking those rocks is, a felony, so you might not want to be mentioning that online.
They should
I
bring those
won't tell
days
Master if
back.
you don't, but
It,
just for further reference.
yeah, I'm not done a tour bus. I see people take photos from the tour buses that go still through Kennedy Space Center um, from time to time, and take pictures of what's going on in the VABs and so forth. Yeah, Bill says it was 50 years ago. Um, yeah, you probably have outlasted the statutes of limitation, Bill. I think you're safe. So, um, let's see. What So what do you think of Artemis 3? Tell us about Starship and where you think it is. Have you followed it closely or not followed it?
Despite what many people may think, I've actually followed Starship very closely for at least HLS, and I actually probably know a little bit more than most people.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I cannot share some of that stuff because I get it
Ah,
from fun people that I can't name. But I do keep up with it through those people that I know, and it's I've seen some stuff that makes me fairly confident that they're going to do it on time when they say they're going to do it. At least HLS wise. Um, and of course their NASA updates regularly with what they're going on, and there's some stuff in PDFs out there that show what they're doing, and I'm
Yeah.
actually pretty confident in HLS
Yeah,
Starship.
the Halloween presentation was awesome. Did you see that with
Um,
NASA? They did on October 31st, they did a Artemis update. They talked
oh,
about
did
all
they?
the Artemis missions and status of SLS and HLS, and so that was kind of exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm pretty excited to see hardware though. That's what I want to see. Is I want to see hardware for HLS. I know they're making a lot of progress, but I'm ready to see some hardware. That's what I would like to see.
Have you been to Boca Chica?
I have not, but I would like to eventually.
Okay. Yeah, I've been to I've been to Boca Chica a few times, and um, it is it, the interesting is when you're standing there on the state highway and you realize that the rocket is maybe two football fields away. I mean, and you're standing on a public state highway, and the rocket's like right there on the orbital launch mount with the orbital launch tower right there. It is amazing.
That's
Let's
incredible.
see.
I don't think they
Three.
let people get that close to SLS normally, do they?
Yeah,
no.
I don't know if you saw the latest static fire where concrete was raining down on the.
Oh, I saw the static fire, but I didn't hear anything about raining concrete.
Oh
That must
yeah,
be
they did a
fun.
14 engine static fire, and I know it's a special type of concrete that you put in the bottom of launch pads, but that concrete um, was raining down on one of the mobile cameras that the YouTubers put out there, and you just hear it raining down on the highway, raining down on the camera. It was amazing. So
That
let's see now 3M Studios. I'm not sure who that is, but
Jam?
uh, I did a bus tour in 2016 when I was in fourth grade. I didn't really have an appreciation for what was going on. I didn't have much of appreciation for what was in front of me and was rushing around to complete some kids program. Who is responsible for range safety at Boca Chica? I, I can probably take a crack at answering it, but if you know it, David, I'll let you answer it. Who's
I
a,
have no clue. That is not my area of expertise.
I,
So
I
I
believe
will
it's
let you
I
go with
believe it's
that.
the same folks that have responsibility for the Kennedy Space Center, and that's the Eastern Range. Do you know anything else, Chad?
No, I don't.
I'm
If I,
fairly
if I
certain
would,
it's.
if I'd had a wild guess, it would be Elon Musk, but I know that's crazy.
No, it doesn't work that way. He doesn't get range safety. I'm fairly certain it's going to be the same folks that are responsible for the Eastern range that also is responsible for Kennedy Space Center and for Wallops.
That is quite interesting that there'd be the same people over at Boca Chica and then Kennedy Space Center.
Well, the range safety is looking is you know, they're the ones that are what is it,
they're the ones that detonate in case something goes wrong.
Right.
The rocket goes into a direction towards residences.
Bill, what are you disagreeing with? He says he disagrees.
Well, okay. What about? I mean, you like ships in the area. That's another part of it as well. We've had a launch cancel one time because of a tour helicopter took off. I actually went to this launch, and then this helicopter took off right by me. I was like, "What are you doing?" Of course, I knew the launch was going to get scrubbed, so I just walked back to my car, and yeah.
Oh.
So I hope that was close.
So range safety, to your point, you know, you can see range safety going on all the time at Kennedy Space Center. You see the helicopters running up and down the beach, clearing, making sure people aren't on the beach and that vehicles are clear and boats are clear.
Yeah. It's a bigger picture than what I had described earlier.
Yeah. So it's pretty, but and I may be wrong as well, but I'm under the impression that it's the people who are responsible for the Eastern Range. Bill, Bill Peterson, do you have any other knowledge? Nope. Okay. So I think that's going to be an exciting launch to go to, but I think it'll be difficult to know when to go because I think they'll have several scrubs. You know, it's not SLS is an operational SLS.
SLS is only missed the whole vehicle. The Space Launch System vehicle is only missing two systems: the Environmental Class Life Support System inside Orion and the docking adapter. That's the only thing this rocket is missing. All of that will be present on Artemis III.
Right.
Yeah, and then in addition, they didn't have the launch abort engaged. I heard
2 of the motors weren't active for this mission. But since there's no people aboard, you don't need those 2 motors to be active.
Right.
Those will be active next mission, as will the life support system, and then the docking adapter comes around on Artemis 3.
And that's not unusual. With SpaceX's DM1, the launch abort wasn't active either.
Right.
It wasn't until DM2 that they actually activated the launch abort.
So that's yeah. The rocket is fully operational. The Orion is almost fully operational.
Yep. And so definitely it is very close to being completely operational. From a crew rating perspective for SLS, when does it get actually deemed as operational and crew rated by NASA? Do you know when that occurs?
I mean, I know it's been operational now. As soon as it completed its mission, it is an operational vehicle.
Okay.
As to when it officially becomes crew rated, I mean, the space shuttle was crew rated before it even flew, and this is basically a space shuttle without the orbiter, if you want to think about it in that sense. Okay. So, I mean, I think it's crew rated as of right now, but that's just the opinion of some guy that doesn't really know anything about the program. So I think it's crew rated as of right now. I would consider it crew rated. But I'm sure NASA has paperwork that they do, and they're going to announce when it can officially fly crew, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure there's paperwork that it's got to go through, and they've got to look at all the data. You always hear that. You know, we'll go through the data, and then they'll make the final decision.
Let's have a vote. Octagonal solar panel arrays or the straight ones for Orion.
The neatest thing that I thought the coolest thing was the pictures from Earth taken off uh, the
Yeah.
solar arrays on Orion itself. And when they went to light and do a course correction, um, you could see the camera vibrating because the rocket was firing. Right, the ESM was firing, and the camera was vibrating as it was going through its course correction. That was pretty cool.
Another cool thing was that when the Orion solar panels were out, you could actually at one point see the SLS core stage falling back to Earth, which was pretty cool to see.
Oh,
Oh
really?
yeah.
Yeah,
I missed
it's
that.
like bank security camera quality,
Uh,
like 4 pixels kind of deal. It wasn't
well,
high quality, but you could see the core stage. It was there in the
well,
background of one of those images.
and one thing that I don't think people realize is, a lot of people complain about the quality of the images coming back. Um, and, you know, the rocket's been in development for a long time, and a lot of the cameras, the whole concept, a lot of the cameras are engineering grade cameras versus, the things that we see. Even our cams on our computer are better quality than from an engineering perspective, from visually what people see. So, um,
Right. Additionally, the camera views from that shot weren't too terrible. You could
no,
see a lot of detail on the ICPS. It was just the core stage was so far away that there wasn't
right,
very much quality to the core stage. But the
right.
ICPS, you could see all the corrugations, all the little
Oh, cool.
indentations in the foam.
Um, we have um, we've taken your we've taken an hour, and we appreciate your time. Chad, do you have anything? I think we've kind of
Yeah,
ran
I
the
think I've
gamut of
covered
all the.
everything.
I think we ran the gamut of all the questions that our viewers had. Here at Future Astronaut, we really want to get people excited about space, and you are probably one of the most excited people out there about space. You and a few of those guys out there have daily arguments about
Yeah.
different topics. So I'm glad that maybe we can get together for the Starliner mission when I'm in Florida, and uh, I'm not sure I'm going
Yeah.
to go down for the Vulcan, not until it carries people. I just
Vulcan with people is. I wonder if Vulcan with people is gonna fly first with Dream Chaser or Starliner.
I believe
That'd be
Dream
interesting.
Chaser. My
You
my
think Dream
own,
Chaser?
yeah. Even
I
though I'm a
think so.
big fan of the Starliner program, and I know some folks over at Boeing. Um, I just get the sense in reading the materials that come out from Boeing about how they're losing money on the crew program and stuff like that, and the fact that they did not bid to extend beyond the 6 missions, right? With NASA, all they're doing is their 6 operational missions. That's it.
Oh,
SpaceX is
really?
doing the SpaceX is doing the rest. It's like all the way through 2030
Oh my
till the
god.
end of the
Yeah.
ISS.
Yeah, I didn't like that news very well.
Yeah, that's
And,
kind of
and, and
depressing.
yeah, so I kind of got the impression that Boeing is kind of saying, "Hey,
Wait. Hold on a second. Starliner is reusable, right? I mean, there's that whole joke Starliner can be reused up to 10
well,
times when it flips over. So why are they only doing 6 missions if they can reuse each capsule like a whole lot?
I think it's 10 times. They they are only contracted to do 6 missions. Now you got to remember they take each capsule and it goes to the next mission, right? So
Right.
so they do reuse their capsules. They do reuse their capsules. Um, the OFT one um, is currently, I think, in construction for Starliner One. The one that would behind OFT is going to be the CFT module. So no. Let me get it right. The CFT module became the OFT2 module. The OFT module, the original OFT module that had all the issues, is now the CFT module. So they do reuse their modules, but they only have 6 operational flights planned before ISS is retired. They don't have a launch vehicle, first of all.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, Tori kind of hints that Vulcan will be crew rated, and he says
But,
if the customer wants, they'll put Starliner on Vulcan. So I guess he's saying that Boeing hasn't said that they want to, but it could be
right,
done.
right. That basically what I think he's saying is Story is saying. Now, Dream Chaser's launching right out of the gate on Vulcan, right?
Right, right, right.
So when they go to do crew Dream Chaser, I believe that'll be the first crewed launches on Vulcan.
That
And
makes sense now that you've informed me of this Boeing decision. Yeah, and I think it was funny too because one of the guys, I think it was maybe the CEO. It was a while ago. Was asked, "Are you still working on Crew Dream Chaser?" And his response was, "We never stopped working on Crew
yeah, I
Dream
know. I love
Chaser."
that.
And I thought that was pretty funny. That was a pretty funny response.
And so they have more work to do, obviously, to get a
Right,
Dream Chaser to be crew. It's got a dock. It's not berth. The initial cargo Dream Chaser is a berthing.
right.
Is berthing. It's using the other thing that's neat about Dream Chaser is it won't just launch out of the U.S.
Oh, what other
Oh wow.
vehicles are they putting it on?
ESA.
Ariane 6?
Yes.
Oh, that'll be cool. And then it can
Yes.
land on like any runway. That's gonna be
Yeah, yeah,
incredible.
it's already being yeah, and it lands basically on I'm not sure what length of runway they look for, but um I think the shuttle required a 15,000-foot runway. So I'm not sure what they're looking at for Dream Chaser, but that's gonna be it's gonna be cool. I think um getting it up to the ISS and seeing that progress will be awesome.
That
So
will be very
anyway,
awesome.
yes. So yeah. So I think
Wait,
that'll be the
hold
next.
on. You might know. I have a question for you. You might know
Okay.
this. Dream Chaser is it part of commercial cargo or whatever?
Commercial cargo.
It is. It is part of that now. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that was the
Officially.
question. I don't remember hearing that.
It,
So
right. No, it's officially part of. It's not part of commercial crew.
right, I know
So
that.
it's commercial. Its crew aspect, I think, would be going to one of the commercial space stations.
Well, if Boeing
Yes.
only bids for 6 flights, is it possible that Dream Chaser could come in and do some
Now
flights of its own?
NASA's awarded everyone all the flights through 2030.
Ah, okay. So it's
So all the
six Starliner
all,
flights, and then everything else is SpaceX.
everything else is SpaceX.
Oh
They've
wow!
they've awarded it every flight through 2030. So now that's assume ISS deorbits in 2030, but I think given kind of the political situation, I think it's going to be hard to continue unless there's a big change in the political situation within the world with the situation that's going on.
Additionally,
And
with Artemis, it'll be like, hey, if we just push this thing into the ocean, we'll have a lot more money to work with for the Artemis program. So they may have incentive there to not continue it.
yeah. So you have Blue Origin that's, has the whole commercial space station. There's several commercial space stations that are underway. And Bill Peterson also would like to buy your buy your SLS model if you're willing to sell it.
Unfortunately, this guy is not for sale. He is mine
Oh,
forever. So
Well,
he's sticking with
how
me.
how tall is that thing?
Oh my gosh. It's it's
so
this tall.
so,
Um,
so Bill, I suspect that if you go either to the Johnson Space Center or the Kennedy Space Center and go to the visitor center, that you can buy that model.
that's where I got it.
Yeah.
It's still there. Last I checked, when I went for SLS the first time. I didn't go to the KSC for the second time because I was just there for the launch. But I mean, I can't imagine it won't be now that it's actually launching.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more excitement around SLS. Just I believe. So anyway,
Oh, yeah.
thank you for spending an hour and 15 minutes with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, and yes, and we will be back together. Maybe you and I can do we can do a Starliner.
If I'm
Get
if I'm
together
able
with
to come
Chad.
down and see it, I will gladly do that.
Oh, I'll try to get tickets for it. If I can't, I'm gonna have to pray to God.
Well, if we can't get tickets, I tell you that bed and breakfast that's right behind that restaurant has got this deck. It is a perfect viewing location for launches out of 39, 40, 41, all those. So, okay. Well, thanks a lot. Have a good evening. I will see you at the next launch.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you, everybody.
Bye.
Go Artemis. Go
Yeah.
SLS. Go Orion.
Go NASA.
Go NASA.